Welcome everyone to our webinar today, SimCapture Data, your key to improving educational outcomes.
My name is Sulaiman Muir. I'm the Business Development Director for SimCapture at Laerdal Medical. I've been working on SimCapture for the past 13 years.
And I'm Andrew Kristopic. I'm the Global Content Marketing Manager. I've been with Laerdal for 15 years. And one of the things that I'm afforded is the opportunity to interview experts like you, Sulaiman. So thank you very much. It's a great part of my job. Today we're going to dive into all the data and the world of data that SimCapture can bring to you. We're going to look at the value data brings to your training strategy. We're also going to look at how data can help you better operationalize your simulation program. We know that we've got a lot of different stakeholders watching this webinar, so we're going to do our best to cover the key stakeholders that are interested in SimCapture. We're also going to explore the resources and tools that you as stakeholders will want to use with SimCapture. And we're going to make sure that we weave in how SimCapture supports competency-based education. At the end of this webinar, we will have time for Q&A, and we're going to keep it light. So there's a great quote, where there's smoke, there's fire, okay? And we're going to paraphrase that. Where there's data smoke, there's opportunity fire. I'm going to repeat that. Where there's data smoke, there's opportunity fire.
I love that, Andrew. But you know, after meeting with too many customers, most of them, they love data as well, but they are very afraid of using it.
And that makes sense. Data can be intimidating, right? Data comes with it a certain amount of jargon sometimes, which can be intimidating in and of itself. Data can involve math. It has the specter of math. Data can often come to us in overwhelming volumes, lots of data. I think one of the biggest things is that data provides transparency, and that can make people feel uncomfortable to suddenly see the amount of transparency that comes with data. Data also causes us to want to do something or to need to do something. Now we have to react. Once we see data, we have to react. We're going to put all those concerns aside for you. And luckily, you won't have to do any math today. But we're going to put those concerns aside as we walk through the data that comes through SimCapture. So Sulaiman, what is SimCapture? Can you help our audience understand what SimCapture is?
Absolutely. SimCapture is a suite of digital tools that enable our customers to assess, record, debrief simulation-based training. SimCapture helps identify areas for improvement for learners so they can make progression in their education and improve learning outcomes. So how SimCapture works? You know, what our customers know about SimCapture, you know, about the hardware part. You have the recording devices, the cameras, that's part of it. But we spoke as well about the assessment, right? So there's a lot happening on the physical infrastructure, IT, audiovisual. That's a small part of it. As you can see on the screen, we have, you know, the SimCapture hardware. And the SimCapture hardware is a very small device. So what we're doing with SimCapture, we're going minimal on the hardware footprint. We're focusing more on doing good simulation on the data rather than just being heavy on the AV equipment. But that being said, we're still, you know, working with IP cameras. We are working, you can see the connection with the recording device. We're going as well fully mobile to conduct a complete simulation learning experience using just your mobile devices without any hardware. SimCapture can connect to all the simulation center components, including, you know, simulators, medical devices, electronic medical records, and all this data is centralized and going straight to the cloud for easy access from anywhere at any time.
No, forgive me for interrupting, but will SimCapture work with any simulator?
Yes, SimCapture is compatible with most of the high-fidelity simulators in the industry, and we can capture as well, as you said, any medical device and electronic health record. And as you can see as well on the screen, we have, you know, from Laerdal, we have the Leap interface that allows a smooth integration and a seamless simulation experience using Leap interface and the integration with SimCapture. And this is what customers see within the SimCenter, as on the front end, but there is a lot happening on the back end. So all the data that's flowing in all directions is captured and centralized into SimCapture.
So I would imagine that there are a number of different stakeholders that are going to appreciate what you just shared. Can you walk through those stakeholders?
100%. You might be, in the simulation center, you have the SimCenter director, you have the faculty, you have the learners, you have the simulation technologist. Everyone is interested of data, but there is, a different value for each one of those. So everyone would be asking, what's in it for me?
So let's begin with the SimCenter director, and we're sure that there's some SimCenter directors listening right now. If I were a SimCenter director, what data am I looking for from SimCapture? What data is it offering me?
Great. So if I want, to just put it in one sentence, the SimCenter director is interested in measuring the performance of their simulation center. They want to know, how is my SimCenter doing? Is it being underutilized? Is it being, am I running the right courses? Am I having the right capacity? Is there a room for expansion? Do I need to do things differently? And in order to do that, you would need, to have data. You need to be able to measure things. And with SimCapture, we provide the tools and the infrastructure, so you can capture all the data flowing within your SimCenter. That being said, you can a SimCenter director can log into SimCapture. They can look at the number of sessions that they've done, at the number of learner contact hours. How many learners I got in, how much time they spent in, how much faculty I have, and they can as well, at the end of the day, with all this data that they have, if they are seeking an accreditation for their simulation center, by one click of a button, they can generate all the data that those accrediting bodies are asking for. If they don't have digital tools in place, it's going to take them several months to gather part of this information so they can seek an accreditation of their SimCenter.
So on the screen, you're showing some of that data right now, correct?
Correct. So on the screen, we're showing the data that can be captured with SimCapture, and we call this utilization reports. And as you can see to the left, we have the number of sessions, learner contact hours, how we're doing with skills assessment. So all of this information, you can do it, show it into charts, then export it into Excel, PDF, and use it in third-party solutions as well.
So I really like the emphasis on operational utilization. As a SimCenter director, I've got a huge amount of responsibility there to make sure that my SimCenter is operating efficiently, that I'm getting the greatest return on my investment for everything I'm responsible for in the SimCenter. What other reports, what other data might I be looking for as a SimCenter director?
I mean, what I showed in the first one was the utilization reports and those statistics that you can generate with SimCapture. But the SimCenter director as well can come in at any time into their center, and they can look into SimCapture, and within a single control interface, they can see what's happening in the different simulation and exam rooms. If you're conducting a NOSCE exams, you can know what's happening, what case is taking place in every specific room, which learner is there, which patient is there. If you're doing simulation, you know that some rooms are busy with simulation, so they will get to know what's the status and what's happening in their simulation center. And that's what's happening like today. But an additional as well feature within SimCapture that is extremely important with SimCenter directors, and where it allows them, to see, is my center being operational in an efficient way, how it's running today, how it's running tomorrow, what's being planned for the next week. So we have our scheduling features that shows, let's say the occupancy and the operations, the type of courses, the events that are being scheduled into SimCapture and into my simulation center. And that as well gives the opportunity for the SimCenter director to forecast for the future. He has data of what happened in the past, what's happening today, what's happening in the medium or short to midterm, and they can know how they want to expand, forecast, change, plan for the next academic year, let's say.
Sliman, you've talked about operational utilization, you've talked about efficiency. Let's talk about competency-based education. SimCenter directors, of course, are driving the agenda for competency-based education, but it's faculty that have to carry that out. So maybe we could transition now to faculty, talking about faculty, the kind of data they're looking for, and what data SimCapture can bring to faculty to enable their competency-based education efforts.
Correct, Andrew. Now that you've spoken of competency-based education, there is a lot of data that needs to be captured there. It's complex data. And, SimCapture is a great tool to capture this information. With SimCapture, we make the job and the life of the faculty easier and their job more efficient as well. Faculty are most interested to measure the performance and the competencies of their learners. And what we're doing with SimCapture, we are providing them with a digital tool to do that. We're not asking them, to do, the methodology differently. We're just letting them do it more efficiently. So if you see, when you look at the screen, we're seeing, an ACLS course. This is what you bring on papers. We added into SimCapture exactly, the same content, the learning objectives, whatever you do in your typical simulation. You bring the script with you, any attachments you want to add, any supporting documents, it's added into SimCapture. The people who are assigned, the learners, the faculty, the facilitators, everything would be added. And that's a key thing with SimCapture, because when you're running reports later on, everything is tagged. Every learner, what courses they've taken, when they've taken that, how they've been progressing. So it's extremely important to put things together in the right place in the beginning. Then as part of the course, you have the curriculum. You have multiple sessions that you need to run within your ACLS course. Just like you do on papers, you open that scenario. You can add it into SimCapture. So if you're looking at the scenario right here, you have the summary, the learning objectives, and what's extremely important with SimCapture, you have the structure, when building that, so you don't miss anything. You would know in which setting it needs to be, in which location this is taking place, what equipment you need, what consumables, what inventory, what simulators. Everything that you need to do your room setup can be added in there, and it's traceable. And as well, you can add, within your scenarios, if you're doing, reflections, formative or summative assessment, or just seeking feedback from your learners, you can add checklists. And those checklists, whatever you do today on papers, imagine you do hundreds or thousands of evaluations per day. You go back home, you have to go through all of this. You miss on, responding to some of those answers, and you need to compile those into a spreadsheet. With SimCapture, you just need to do that, add it into SimCapture. Like any technology, it needs a bit of time to get started. And once you're there, everything becomes automated. And here in our checklist, you can assign, the different questions, answers, the value that you get on the point value you get on every answer. And most importantly, you can, in a way, combine those by what you call question categories or different competencies that you can measure and track over time. One last thing that within the scenarios, faculty is using always, annotations, part of the feedback. These annotations, many call it bookmarking, flagging. It's, it helps identifying what happened at a certain period of time during the session. It helps to show if we met our objectives. Did we wash our hands? Did we take the action we need to take in let's say, trauma scenario, applying the AED defibrillator at the right time? So all of this can be tagged and added into your simulation session. And then in the next slide, we would see, those annotations added, what would be their outcome? So, you've added those bookmarking, those flagging. You do simulation, you do the annotations that you need to do. And at the end, you generate a report. You conduct X number of sessions by the end of the semester, let's say, and you pull a report saying, hey, I've done 100 trauma cases, and in those 100 trauma cases, I get only 90 where they use an AED defibrillator. Then there is something wrong out there, right? I mean, it should be at least, the ratio should be 1-to-1. regardless if this was applied right or not, but it wasn't even used. So it has identifying trends and gaps in my simulation on where our learners need to do better, on how as well we can improve within our curriculum and scenario. So all of these reports help collecting data to improve learning outcomes and dive more into quality improvement in healthcare.
To summarize, SimCapture gives you structure, it gives faculty structure, and it creates a feedback loop, feedback efficiency. So everything now is, through that structure, is at your fingertips. Now let's talk about the data that's being collected and how that relates to competency-based education, because I think you're going to talk about performance data at this point.
Yes, you're spot on, Andrew. What we showed in the beginning is just, how we can convert our simulation experience into being fully digital, so we can generate data. But once we generate this data, how can we make the best use out of it? And what we will show here are some performance reports that are usually the most interest to our faculty, because that's their goal, is how to measure performance, how to measure and track competencies for their students. And here, for example, we've taken the ACLS course. We have multiple scenarios within our ACLS course. What we're seeing on the screen, we're capturing the cohort performance. How this class is performing. You have indication, how many have participated, where are we in terms of the results, are we doing well, not well. We're seeing as well how's performance on each of these scenarios. So we can, are we doing good enough? Should we continue doing that? Are we good? Should we move to the next one? And then if we zoom into certain competencies that you want to measure, we can go into the specific scenarios. We can link the competencies that are taking place into these different scenarios, and we can measure the performance there. So this will give much better picture for the faculty. They can look at the scenario as a whole scenario. They can look at the competencies that are measured through multiple scenarios and track the progress over time as well. More to that, if we look at the specific learners who are taking the course, we can compare those learners together. We can have an overview of what's happening in the class, how different learners are, how Rich is performing here, how Jefferson is performing on the screen. And then I can as well go into that learner and then see how this learner is doing. Over the period of, where they have been taking their course, they went through multiple scenarios, assessing multiple competencies through these scenarios. I would know how they are performing, if they are performing well, where they are underperforming, and there is a need for remediation. And this is the most important thing when doing competency-based education. So you get their complete score. You can get as well the average of the class, the mean, and how they are comparing to this as well. You can get lots of data on the cohort and how this is compared to the user's performance as well.
So you mentioned something that's key in the context of competency-based education, which is remediation. So now you've got visibility on the fly. You can remediate on the fly. An important question that our listeners, I'm sure, is can the competencies be programmed into SimCapture? Am I able to use the competencies that are part of my agenda, part of my curriculum? Can I program those into SimCapture?
Yes, faculty have full control on how they want to build their courses, scenarios, competency-based education within SimCapture. And it's coming later on from a learner perspective. I will show how they can use this approach, but all of this is in a way pre-programmed by the faculty. One last thing I wanted to mention on the reports and the data that is generated from my courses. What we've shown here is measuring performance, summative assessment, which is extremely important. But there are many who do simulation, just team-based simulation. As much as summative assessment is important, they're doing simulation just for formative feedback. But even doing that, I believe using some checklist, evaluation, Feedback within a certain scenario is extremely important. If we look at the qualitative side of it, we want to know, are we asking the right questions? Do we have the right curriculum? So within SimCapture, we have questions and answer analysis reports that will, if we look into this one, for example, if you can see on the screen, we have what we call point by serial. It allows you to see, if the performance of the learner on a specific question is correlating with the overall performance on an evaluation or feedback they are giving back. And if it's correlating, it means, everything is in line and is moving as expected. If it's not correlating, it means we're either asking the wrong question, or we have something really wrong with our learners that needs to be adjusted, or we need to revisit and update our curriculum accordingly. So this is, here we're asking questions, we're doing evaluations, but not, just saying, hey, you passed, you failed, and to put the learners under pressure. It's the opposite. It's to really get this feedback back to the faculty so they can do the quality improvement and update their curriculum accordingly.
Slimon, let's talk about learners for a moment. There's been an evolution towards incorporating the modality of self-directed learning or learner-directed learning. And in the context of competency-based education, it's emphasized that learners should learn at their own pace. Mm-hmm. How do learners fit into the SimCapture equation and the data that comes from SimCapture, and how do faculty still play a role?
Good question, Andrew. Basically, faculty still plays a major role in here. They build the courses, the scenarios, they assign what scenarios and competencies the learners need to train on. And with SimCapture, we have what we call SimCapture for Skills. Is a learning tool, it's a web portal that learners can access to train on different skills. They can do this, on their own. They can self-record themselves and then send this back for the faculty to review at their own time. It's kind of asynchronous training. And they can do as well training with a peer. So they can train with other learners and then get automatic feedback. And what we're showing on the screen in front of you is basically a screenshot of the web portal. And this is mainly, for competency-based education. This is where learners connect, are assigned competencies by their faculties. And here what we are seeing is, for me, I'm logged in and I'm looking, for example, at just, the Harvey cardiopulmonary course. And I can see I've done 8 attempts. That was my last score of 31/38. I'm 81% competent with the 2 competencies I'm assigned to do. I have 2 competencies, obviously, that I have to do. I've done those competencies. I went through 10 different attempts in total. So all of this is just from a learner interface. Learners can train. They can measure their own performance. It's not summative, assessment like, hey, you passed, you failed. It's how I'm progressing over time. And when I hit the 100%, I know I'm competent. And all of this is visible, for the faculty to review whenever they want, or to get them ready to go into, summative exams later on, or say hey, we're just competent. We can move to doing other stuff.
To reemphasize, so faculty can see all this data, and then, of course,
yes.
Deans, the Sim Center directors, everyone has visibility into this data.
Yes, basically everyone, we give them access to it as a faculty or administrator. Within SimCapture, you have different access rights. So the learners get to see a few things. Faculty, administrators, other people who play different roles in this training center or within the educational institutions have different access rights as well. So people with access rights, they would be able to have an overview of the performance and the progression of their learners.
Do learners have their own account? And are they able to go into SimCapture and see their performance history?
Yes, absolutely. So learners have their own portfolio, and this is extremely important within SimCapture and the great value that SimCapture brings, to the faculty and to the educational institutions, because everything that the learner is doing is tied in a way to an evaluation, to a scenario, to a session, to everything that they do in the Sim Center is traceable, and then it can be generated with the data that is captured. So from a learner's perspective, that we can log into SimCapture from anywhere. Again, it's a cloud-hosted solution.
Important.
And exactly, and they will be able to see, okay, I've taken part in that course, in that specific scenario. Can I review it? Can I do the debrief, rewatch that at my own pace? Yes. And then on top of that, they can log into the calendar. Like, do I have upcoming events? When is my next scheduled scenario? When do I need to be in the simulation center? They can do that as well. And if there's any summative assessment, they've taken courses, waiting for the results, faculty can release, the score results to the learner portfolio so they can log in, see how they've done. If there's any feedback, they can log into the courses. They can go into more specific stuff. They can review the sessions, see where they actually didn't do well. If the faculty gives them the opportunity to review, and everything is fully manageable by the faculty on that side.
We've talked about a number of stakeholders, a number of users for SimCapture, but let's talk about simulation technologists or SimTechs. How will they use the data from SimCapture, and what data are they looking for when using SimCapture?
Right. So, SimTechs are responsible to basically to run the operations of the Sim Center from a technology and hardware perspective. Faculty deal more with the content, the courses, the scenarios. SimTechs make sure everything is ready to start a certain scenario or simulation. So with SimCapture, we make the job of the SimTech in a way easier, because a small example, if you have a number of simulators on site, how do you know if this simulator is due for maintenance, a consumable is due for replacement? As we've shown in the beginning of this webinar, when building our courses and scenarios, we have a structured approach that allows to really add all the information that needs to be added in there, including the simulators, the medical devices, so we know what is being used, when it's being used, and how much time it's being used. And then we, SimTechs and other people, other stakeholders within the Sim Center can pull the reports that show, the utilization, of those simulators that are in line with the number of sessions taken, which simulators have been used, how many times, how much hours, and when this is due for maintenance or consumable replacement.
May I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So can I now use historical data from SimCapture to predict when I may need maintenance or certain wear and upkeep for my simulators?
Yes, absolutely. So all the data captured within SimCapture is always there unless you decide to delete it. So if you wanted to look at, at data, what's happening like last year, for many years before, if you had SimCapture, it will help you definitely in forecasting for the future. Whether you plan to add more consumables, you get the forecast for what parts you need to have ready for your simulation.
Very good.
And another important tool within SimCapture that is extremely helpful for simulation technologists is, the integration we have with the different simulators. Here I'm going to speak about the Leap integration. I mentioned this briefly at the beginning of the webinar, but for the people who are not familiar with Leap, Leap is a simulation software from Lairdal that allows to centrally manage all the Lairdal simulators in one place. SimCapture, as we mentioned, does integrate with different simulators. We do capture the logs, we do capture the patient monitor, but we really take it to the next level with Leap. We have a very advanced integration. In a typical setup, or when SimTechs are doing simulation, someone is loading the scenario on the simulator PC, they are running with this. Someone else is running, the AV component. With Leap and the SimCapture integration, you open the Leap scenario. You don't have to worry and access SimCapture. You just focus on Leap. You load the scenario. You choose the cameras you want to use. You start the scenario. Recording is starting in the background. You don't have to worry about it. You complete your simulator scenario. Once you're done with a session, it will take you straight into debriefing. And then here we're really just focusing on doing one thing, and SimCapture is doing the job in the background. You have your recorded sessions, your scenario added, and then you can continue with the debriefing and assessment if needed.
SimCapture in this regard then becomes really a smart hub. Mm-hmm. And I hope that's a good way to describe it, a smart hub for all the incoming data, outgoing operations. It's really my wheelhouse for data. And if I was a technician, I'd be pretty excited about that.
Yes, SimCapture is the hub, that captures everything that is running in your SimCenter, whether it's you're capturing devices, hardware, data, everything flowing in the SimCenter, we can capture it in a way or another with SimCapture. What that means for a SimTech, what's in it for a SimTech? First, they are centralizing everything is in one place, and then they can use, utilization reports and stuff to know what's happening. And a small tip here, if you're running with SimCapture, you're connecting the audio, the video, the patient monitor, scenarios. If you're running with a manual system, you just need to go and confirm as a SimTech that everything is in place. But with SimCapture, you open your session, you're getting the feeds, you're getting the audio, you're getting the patient monitor that you don't have to worry about going and checking what's wrong. But if something is not showing in the system, that probably, a camera is offline, or you didn't start your scenario, or a simulator is not connected to power, so then you can start investigating. But usually, it's pretty straightforward to see how things are going in your SimCenter.
Suleiman, you've covered a lot. Big question. What percentage of SimCenters are actually gathering the data, collecting the data you've talked about today, and are actually using it to improve their performance?
Very good question, Andrew, and a very tricky one, because this is very different from one region to another. There are some regions who are heavily using data, others that are less using data. With data, we have a global reach, and with our experience and with what we are seeing, there are still less than 35% of training center capturing data. That being said, this is changing, and changing in a good way, because healthcare education is moving towards competency-based education. And whoever is not capturing data, they cannot move with that trend. So what we are trying to do, we're trying to support our customer in this transition using SimCapture by capturing data and measuring the performance of the learners.
Before we open up with Q&A, let's just take a moment to summarize what we've talked about so far. Key point, data flows from everywhere within the organization. The data is really not that intimidating once we understand how to use it, how to gather it, and how to use it. Capturing and leveraging that data leads to three key factors: improved operational utilization and efficiency, better understanding of how learners are progressing, and better opportunities to remediate if we need to, and then better and I think more inspired learner performance, because they get to see their own history and understand how they can change to be a better learner. All of this ultimately supports better educational outcomes. Would you agree?
Totally agree.
Then we're going to move into Q&A. We've been taking questions since we've begun the webinar, and we've got a couple really great questions here. And the first one is, can users create their own assessment within SimCapture?
Yes, SimCapture is 100% customizable, so faculty can build their own courses, scenarios, and assessment. And if everything is in place with SimCapture as a digital tool, then automatic reports can be generated out of these for these assessments.
Excellent. So the next question here is, if you are doing high-stakes exams, how can you ensure that the rating is reliable?
That's a good question as well. So basically, we have within SimCapture a SimCapture inter-rater consistency report, and that allows basically to compare the rating of different raters. If someone is being too hard on the learners, too soft on the learners, if there is an inconsistency, with the rating of a specific learner, so you can identify that, you can flag it out, and then you can revisit if needed.
Very well. The third question that has come in is, does SimCapture provide formative feedback to students?
Absolutely. So SimCapture can be used, when doing simulation, you use SimCapture and as a tool to provide this formative feedback. We have as well developed SimCapture for Skills, which is a self-driven interface for learners to train either on their own or with their peers, and then provide this in a way peer debriefing and peer formative feedback as well.
How does SimCapture support competency-based education?
Yeah, that's coming up a lot these days. But competency-based education is about measuring outcomes opposed to just doing time-based training. And with SimCapture, we're capturing data, we're measuring the performance, and we are actually helping institutions to better apply competency-based education by providing them with the tools to capture all this data.
And we have time for one more question. How does SimCapture enable assessment of team-based simulations?
Yeah, with SimCapture, you can do individual assessment, but you can do as well team-based simulation and assessment. That can be as well both formative and summative, either providing a feedback for the team from the formative and doing the reflection, or you can just do a team assessment and you're scoring them against something, and this score is distributed similarly to the different team members, and it's going to be against their course scores at the end.
Very good.
Individual assessment is also available.
Great. Thank you, Sliman. So with that, we're out of time. If we didn't get to your question online, please, we'll be sure to get back to you with an answer. We invite you to stay tuned for some complimentary content that will be sent out to you as a result of your attending this webinar. And we'd also like to invite you to participate in our other webinars. This is part of a series, so please sign up for that. And lastly, if you'd like a free demo of SimCapture, please contact your Laerdal representative and we'll be sure to make sure that you get that demo and get the attention that you need. Laerdal's mission is helping save lives, and your participation in this webinar and understanding more about SimCapture and what data can do to improve your program and your learner outcomes is all part of that effort that goes to ultimately saving lives at the patient bedside. So thank you very much for attending. Sliman, thank you. You've been absolutely outstanding today.
Pleasure
so very
being
much,
with you here.
It was a great experience, and we hope it was a great experience for all of you online. Thank you very much.